This is our first Capturing Stories oral history program interview. In the room are Cassie Franklin, Mrs. Jeanette Urbantke, Miss Catherine Ehlers, Miss Olivia Vice, and Mr. Ronnie Urbantke. And it is Thursday, December 12th, 2024.
So, Mr. Urbantke, tell me your full name and age.
Ronald Urbantke, and Monday was my birthday, and I was 78 years old.
Happy birthday. So tell me what it was like living in Riesel at the time, like whenever you were younger.
Well, when I grew up here, I lived on a farm out on the Battle Lake Road on the north side of the district, and went to school here all my life. And back then, the school was not as large as it is now. Many of our classes had like 15 or 16 students in them. And the whole school was in one building that's non-existent anymore. It was right out here. It had an elementary wing and a high school and junior high wing. So when we looked at our high school membership in 9 through 12, you were probably looking at 160 children or something like that. So we were not very large. We were always a Class B school back then. And you knew everybody. You knew their parents. You knew their dog. You knew their cat. And they knew you. So you couldn't get away with much at school that didn't get home before you got home. And it was a very close-knit student body. The parents in this district then were very achievement-centered parents. They expected their children to go to school and do well, and I think the crowning achievement for anybody was to have a child that was a valedictorian or a salutatorian. That was the kind of pressure that was put on the kids, you know. And they were all very cooperative parents. You know, they'd come in and tell you, if my child messes up here at school, you paddle their behind. You know, that was when I was principal and superintendent. But I mean, that was the environment of the community, and a very close-knit community. We had churches everywhere you looked. There were probably 6 churches within 2 miles of this campus, and everybody was a church-going person, and generally on Wednesday night too, as well as Sunday. And it was a situation where the parents really entered into the education of the students. They really wanted everybody to do well, you know, and that was just the environment. It's just like living in a great big family, you know.
What is your earliest memory of Riesel?
What is what?
Your earliest memory of Riesel, like your favorite memory.
The earliest memory. Oh, I've got some, but I can't talk about them.
When you moved from the old school to the new school.
I used to do what?
When you moved from the old school.
Oh yeah, there was right up the street where you turn to go to the fire station. Well, it was where the fire station sits right now. There was an elementary school there, and it was a 2-story red brick building, and that's where I started school. And when I was in the 3rd grade, they had just finished building the school that was right out here, and it was brand new, and we got to come over here. One day the teacher said, "Okay, everybody get all your books." and we took all of our books and they lined us up and we marched from that school over there over to this school. And got in our brand new classroom and we were so happy. It was such a nice place, you know. Over at the old school, the two-story school, the cafeteria was upstairs. You had to go upstairs to get up to the cafeteria. And then the high school was right down the street. There's a four-corner deal right down the street. The high school sat right here beside where the water well is now. And that's where everybody went to high school there.
What did people in Riesel do for fun?
Now what?
What did people in Riesel do for fun back then? Like, what did you do for fun?
For fun?
Mm-hmm.
Well, pretty much when I lived on a farm, and pretty much when I wasn't at school, I was there, and I was the only chicken. I had no brothers and no sisters. And so when I got home, it was work. And we raised corn and we raised cotton and we milked cows and all the things that go along with farm life. That's pretty much what I did at home. Most of my recreational stuff was here at school in athletics. I played football, I played basketball, track, and that was pretty much the scope of my endeavor in athletics. We didn't really have anything else other than that. But every now and then on weekend we might take off and go to a picture show somewhere or something like that. But as far as having a lot of fun things, we didn't. That was back then when I was, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old. We got a television.
Wow.
And we had a black and white television, and we just thought that was the grandest thing in the world.
How do you feel about shot put?
Shot put?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Did you win any awards?
Huh?
Did you win any awards for that?
Yeah, track. I really like football, and in the process of playing football, I wound up tearing a knee up pretty bad. And I didn't get to play my senior year. I played in the band. So, but I did play basketball and I did run track. And then my senior year, I won state in the shot put and set a state record, 58 feet and 11 inches, which stood for about 14 years before it got broken. And a young man that went to school over at Axtell actually broke it first, and then his record got broken again. So, but the shot put was my way out, so to speak, because that enabled me. Baylor came and talked to me, and I got a scholarship to run track or throw up at Baylor. I threw the shot and discus at Baylor.
How did people make a living back then? How are different?
A lot of this community was farming, but there were many people in this community that worked at General Tire in Waco. It was the largest manufacturing plant in this area. People came from everywhere to work at General Tire. And a lot of the guys that were farmers here and were having a tough time making it farming would go and get a job at General Tire. And many of them had worked there for 20 and 30 years. I mean, it was a hard job. And they worked shift work. They had 3 shifts a day. But a lot of the people in this community were General Tire employees, And back when I was a student here, many of the people that were on the school board were General Tire employees because, you know, I mean, that's how many people we had. They were everywhere. And but they worked hard.
What did your parents do for a living?
Farm,
Farm.
yeah. My mother was a stay-at-home housewife, farm wife, and she worked so very hard. And my dad was a farmer, and during the fall, he ran a cotton gin over at Mart, managed the cotton gin over there. And after they closed the gin up, well, he started, he enjoyed painting, and he got to going around and painting people's houses. And at the end, he was working up at Baylor. He was working in the girls' dorms in Baylor, painting as a painter for the dean of women up there at Baylor.
So, whenever you were a child at Riesel, what was it like when the school integrated local black students to Riesel?
I don't know. What's the question now?
What was it like when the school integrated local black students?
Well, there were some rough times and there were some good times. I guess we integrated when I was a junior in '64, and a lot of the kids that came here, they had an 8th grade school down in the bottom, so to speak, called Rising Star Elementary. And the kids that went to Rising Star Elementary, all the black kids went there. When they graduated from there, Riesel ISD, they weren't going to school here then. Riesel ISD would pay for them to go to Moore High School in Waco, which was a black high school in Waco. So the separation for those children, for them to leave all their friends and what they were looking forward to. Moore High was a proud school. Moore High had a wonderful band, and they had a wonderful football team that won all the time. And for those kids to go to Moore High, it was a real a plus for them. Well, whenever the integration occurred, that went away because Riesel stopped paying for it, and they came here. And the ones that I dealt with were athletes, and we made friends real quick. And they were good athletes, and they were good folks, and a lot of them are still my friends today, the ones that are alive, you know. And we had a time. Some of them were better athletes than we were, and there was an adjustment phase in there, and I don't think there was ever a real feeling in those kids initially that they belonged here, because there was nothing here for them when they came here. Everything they had looked forward to was up there, and their friends were all up there. So they were thrown into the mix here, okay? There were probably an equal number of girls and boys, don't you think? Probably.
That came here?
Yeah.
There wasn't many.
Right, and the girls, I never did get the feeling that the girls adjusted here as well as the boys did, because they weren't really involved in athletics. They were not athletes. The boys kind of worked themselves in because they played basketball and played football with us and all that. So I think that there was always kind of I'm not going to say a division, but a situation where maybe not accepted, so to speak. And but I think we had a lot less problems here than some of the neighboring school districts did.
How did you feel when they integrated here? Like, what did
I
you
had no problem with it
you have a problem?
because I knew a lot of them because we had worked in the fields together. And I had, we played under the wagon when we were little in the cotton patch. And when they got older, we worked together in the fields and we knew each other and things like that. So it was not a situation that I ever thought was a bad situation. The only thing that I could see was that it improved their lot in life a whole bunch, because that old school they had down there was nothing. Maybe had 4 rooms in it, and it was an old wooden school. And when they closed it up and we integrated, they brought the ones that were not high school students up here to Riesel, and they went to school in the old 2-story building that we had left. And they called that Rising Star Elementary.
How did the other students around you feel about them integrating here?
It differed, and it was a reflection of what the parents' feeling was at home. Some parents did not want their children going to school with black children. Some parents handled it very well. Some parents, it was never a situation where it was a real vocal thing, I don't think. But I think it was a situation of where things were implied. And there'd be an altercation every now and then. There'd be a fight, and somebody'd get over it, but there was not, that I can remember, there were never any adults that were really, really vocal about their children going to school with black students. There were some. One of the real ironies in this situation was that there were some people that lived down to the south, and they had made the statement, well, their kids weren't ever going to school with any black children. They're going to go to Marlin. So they went to Marlin. The school board in Perry, if you can imagine that, they had a school down there and a school board. The school board in Perry met and voted for all the Perry children to go to Marlin because they didn't want to come to Riesel where there were black students. Now, you know what happened there. And that was, I always thought that was real funny because they were trying to avoid the problem and they hit right down in the middle of it.
How did what town relationships did Riesel have, like other schools?
Well, there were only one school that we hated real bad, and that was Crawford.
Me too.
And and we could get along with the rest of them. We were in the district with Axtell and Bruce Folletti and Moody and all those people. Little old schools like us, and shoot, you had no problem with them, but whenever you played Crawford, you always had problems because they hated us and we hated them, and why, I don't know. But it was just always that way.
Me too. So Crawford was the big rival?
Oh yeah. Their superintendent over there was the head coach. And had been the head coach for a long time and the superintendent for a long time. And his name was C.K. Burns. and he was a good schoolman, and he was for Crawford, and he was going to make sure Crawford had every advantage to win. He would not play a football game on Friday night. All their football games were on Thursday night. And there were not a lot of times that we beat them, but when we did, we sure loved it.
How has Riesel's physical appearance changed since then, from now?
Like money?
No, the appearance of Riesel.
Oh,
Businesses, all of
roads,
that.
houses.
well, we didn't have a whole lot of money around here. And there were lots of basketball uniforms that got worn for 4 or 5 years, and there were football suits that got worn for 4 or 5 years, and but that was, everybody was like that. It's like the guy said, we were poor, but everybody was poor, so it didn't make any difference. But they did the best they could with us.
What was Riesel like during the war in Vietnam?
Whew. During the war in Vietnam, I graduated in 65. And I was at Baylor from 1965 to 1969, which is when the war was really hot. In fact, about 30 days after I graduated from Baylor, I got a summons to report for my physical. And had I passed that physical, I wouldn't have gotten to come home. They'd put us on a bus and send us straight to the recruiting station. But an old doctor up there looked at me and he said, "Son, with feet like that, you can't be in this man's army." And I almost kissed him. But Vietnam, there were some of my close friends that went to Vietnam, that went to school here with me. And, we tried to kind of keep up with them during the time that they were there. Thankfully, they all came home, but they were not in very good shape because of what they had been through. One of them was a medic over there, and another one was just a infantry soldier, and they came home with some pretty hairy stories about what it was like over there. It was terrible. But as far as since I was away at that time, as far as being able to experience the feelings of the people in the community as to whether they were pro-Vietnam or not pro-Vietnam, I really didn't have an opportunity to do that. About all I heard about Vietnam was what was on the news, when they showed the people coming home and all that. And of course, everything that you hear about politicians, and the government, and who's against it and who's for it and all that. But as far as any reflection here in Riesel, I don't know that there was all that much. There were probably much more over World War II than Vietnam.
When you graduated Baylor, what did you study while you were in Baylor?
When I went to Baylor, I studied physical education because I was going to be a coach, and then my teaching field was business, and where I learned to type with both hands and do bookkeeping and things like that. So when I got out, I taught some typing, and I taught bookkeeping, and even taught some civics every now and then. So, but my emphasis pretty much, I knew what I was going to do the whole time I was there, and working toward coaching.
Speaking of coaching, when you came back to Riesel to coach, how's coaching different from now, from here?
Well, when I got out of Baylor, I moved away and coached at two different schools for 6 years, and then I came back here in 1975 and coached here. I was the high school principal and head coach, and I had three guys that worked with me as assistants. We only had 4 coaches on our staff. And then the superintendent that we had at that time, Mr. Haft, was the girls' basketball coach. So we didn't have to worry about the girls too much because he took care of girls' stuff and we were just boys, you know. But we had a pretty good program. We were never any big winners, but we'd go 5-5, 6-4, things like that. And there were several times then we were in the district with some larger schools like Franklin and Bremond, Calvert, Centerville. Those were people that were in our district back then. And we managed to get in the district with Crawford and the old people here in Central Texas, you know. But we had some pretty good athletes.
What all did you coach? Everything?
Everything.
Which one's your favorite?
We had, I was the track coach, I was the head football coach, probably coached junior high boys basketball. I don't know what all. But everybody back then, you coached all the time. There wasn't any time off for you, you know. It's not like it is now where you have a defensive ends coach and a defensive tackles coach and a center coach and a running backs coach and all that. You know, everybody worked pretty hard.
Which one was your favorite to coach?
Well, I enjoyed track a lot, and I coached girls and boys track, and we had some pretty good girls and we had some pretty good boys in track. We had pretty good success there. So.
What was y'all's most successful sport?
Oh, I don't know. I guess we were pretty good in basketball. When I played here, we won district in basketball, and we played Crawford for the district championship naturally. And the way they had the thing set up is we played 2 games, a round robin, and then at the end of that, we played a district tournament. So we played Crawford in the first round, we played Crawford in the second round. I don't recall who won the district tournament. They may have, but that was the third game we played them. And the way they had it set up was if the team that won the round robin play and the team that won the district tournament was not the same team, then those 2 teams had a best of 3 playoff. So we played Crawford 1, 2, played them in the tournament 3, and we went to the third game in the playoff. We played Crawford 6 times to win district, and that was in 1964.
When you were superintendent through the 90s and the 20s, when did you start? Like, when did you become superintendent?
I coached for 5 years till 1980, and at that time I got out of the coaching business, and I was K through 12 principal. Had the whole thing, and that was in 1980, and I did that for 5 years, and then Mr. Haft, the superintendent that we had, retired in 1985, and that's when I took over the superintendent's job in 1985, and I did that for 21 years.
Why was the Urbantke named after you?
Why was the what?
The Urbantke named after you.
The gym.
I don't have any idea.
You don't know you don't know why the gym was named after.
Well, I pretty much had that built. Okay, that was one of my projects, is building that gym. And I guess they figured they needed to name something after me, so they put it on that gym.
Okay.
But I appreciated it a lot. You know, I didn't expect anything like that. But I really, you know, the whole time going to school here 12 years and then coming back and working here for 31 years, you know, that's a lot of Riesel to wash off. and you and like I say, you know, we knew everybody. And I guess that's more what I miss now than anything else, because I don't know the kids anymore. I probably one of the 6 people in town that take the Rustler, and I look at the Rustler and here's all the pictures of all these children. And sometimes they even put the names with them. You know, that doesn't help because the names mean nothing to me. You know, I may know 2 out of the whole bunch, but that was one of the things that I really liked about being here in education, is the close-knit relationships that we had with the teachers and the students. I guess I miss that more than anything, because we had some really good kids here, and we had some kids here that went on to be, bless their hearts, some of them even went to A&M. But we had some children here that went on to get their master's degrees. They're pharmacists. I mean, they did things that, you know, I couldn't even imagine when I was a student here. And as I watched those kids progress, I felt like that we were doing a pretty good job trying to prepare them for what they had ahead of them. And I always took great pride in our graduates going and doing well, and tried to keep up with them as much as I could.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Urbantke.
Well, I enjoyed it, Olivia.